are coming to you live from WSW News. I am Krista Wagner, your host for the 7 a.m. Daily News. Though it has been 2 weeks from the hit of Hurricane Sandy, schools and businesses all over are struggling to recover. PSE&G have been working around the clock to restore power to our area as over 2 million households are still without power in the state of New Jersey. This Monday, the Ocean City School District will finally be returning to school. However, many civilians are still struggling to find shelter and resources. As 346,000 homes were extremely damaged or destroyed during the storm, the State Department is doing everything they possibly can to help aid and restore the community. Jersey Shore United, as well as hundreds of other relief groups, are uniting the community by lending helping hands to those in need. Though the state is finally beginning to recover from the travesty of Sandy, the emotional toll of the 36 deaths will never be forgotten. Today we have a special guest, Michaela Waddell, a victim of Hurricane Sandy travesty. Miss Waddell lives in Ocean City, New Jersey, and had a face-to-face experience with Sandy. As it has been 2 weeks since the hit of Sandy, the roller coaster of emotions here in Ocean City are still tense. Miss Waddell lost her home as well as her childhood pet Lulu, an 8-year-old golden retriever, to Sandy. So, Miss Waddell, can you please tell me a little bit more about your experience with Sandy?
I've been living in Ocean City my whole life for the past 24 years, and hearing about this superstorm Sandy, we pretty much didn't believe that it was going to be as big as it was and as devastating as it turned out to be. So we really didn't prepare. Many of my neighbors actually evacuated, but I chose not to for the reasons that every time they said that we were going to have a storm this big, it didn't even rain last time. So I didn't even think there was going to be a thunderstorm, and therefore ended up staying in my house. But 2 days into the storm, it got really bad, and everywhere was practically flooded, so I knew that we had to leave because we could no longer stay in our house due to the damage that already happened. So I called up my aunt, and I was going to go stay with her.
Yeah. So you said that we talked about how you lost your dog. So can you tell us a little bit more about what happened and how you ended up losing it?
Well, once we decided to evacuate, it was in the middle of the storm, but we had to go out because there was no other chance. And when I went out to go get my car, a tree fell down on a power line in front of our apartment, and I was walking my dog with me. The leash had slipped out of my hand, and she obviously does not know not to run over power lines because they're still active, and unfortunately was electrocuted and died on the spot.
Thank you so much, Ms. Waddell, for coming on the show and talking about your experience with Hurricane Sandy. Do you have anything else that you want to say or talk about?
I would just like to advise people to listen to the newscasts and weather reports about upcoming storms, because it is pivotal that we listen to them when we hear about these big storms, because you never know what you're going to lose. My dog was my whole life. I grew up with her. She was a part of me. I loved her more than I love myself, and I'm still grappling with the fact that she's no longer with me, and that hurts me every day more than my basement being flooded and me losing half of my house. I think it's important that people know how to prepare for these storms, and just because a couple towns over it might not be as bad, you should still look at your own situation and prepare for that one, because you don't know what's going to come and hit you.
Thank you so much again for coming on the show and talking to us about your personal experience with Hurricane Sandy. Next, we have a veterinarian from Ocean City, Dr. Jones, and she's here to talk about how to protect your pets in natural disaster situations. So, Dr. Jones, can you give us a little bit of your knowledge on ways to help prevent your dogs from either being injured or losing their life in instances like Hurricane Sandy?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing that I'd have to say is that when we think about natural disasters, we talk about how, sure, it just destroys homes and towns and affects humans' lives. But I think what we don't focus on enough is that it affects the lives of our pets. And obviously, we love our pets, as we've seen through Miss Waddell's experience. But I think the most important way of how to protect our pets in storms is to prepare. So before, when you know a big storm's happening, I think the biggest thing is to make sure that your pet's ID'd, and the fact that if they will get lost during the storm, you could help bring these dogs home once again. And I think another biggest thing is that it's not just about preparing, it's about what happens to these dogs during the storm. So obviously these storms are pretty dramatic, as they can affect and cause PTSD in humans, but I think that we don't realize that this also affects these pets enough. As you know, pets are very cognizant of when storms are coming and have big senses, and they can notice these things more than humans. And I don't think we realize that can create huge stresses on them after storms. So I think being there as a support system and being patient, pets definitely have some experiences with the storms. They can get night terrors and stuff like that. So I think we make sure it's just being a big, strong support system for pets is very important.
So you talked a little bit about how dogs have a certain sense when it comes to storms. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that entails and how that can affect being in an instance like Hurricane Sandy?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So as everyone knows, as the general public, dogs definitely do get affected by storms differently, and that's because they can actually sense the air pressure changes more than humans can, which this can actually relate to more stresses and triggers of storms, which can cause them to be affected by storms a lot greater. So it's not just the physical toll of could they lose their lives in the storm, but it's the emotional effects that we don't think enough.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jones, for coming on the show and talking to us about the dogs and animals lost in Hurricane Sandy. I did a little bit of research, and I saw that over 2,000 dogs went missing during Hurricane Sandy. Is this true?
Yeah, I think as not only as homeowners have been reporting missing pets, but also through our findings and our recovery programs, we've found that over 2,000 pets have gone missing for the storm. So I think this just proves and focuses this point enough that pets do need to be protected during storms. I think homeowners as well as pet owners need to do everything they can to try to protect our pets.
Thank you so much. So, folks, that concludes our episode today about Hurricane Sandy and the effects it has on not just us as people, but on our animals and our pets. If you have any further questions on Hurricane Sandy or how to protect your pets during a storm, please contact Dr. Jones at her medical practice.